And a particular thanks, Gary Gottlieb, who's just right in the front row, Richard Frank. Remember when we all together decided that we were going to do this, and I have to tell you, Gary, it would not have happened without your standing behind me. A lot of us have ideas. Some of them get a little far stretched, but you backed up this thought that it would be a great opportunity to repurpose John F. Kennedy's legacy for the cause of today's implementation of the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act. I'll always be grateful to you, Gary, for your backing this dream that we've had. So of course, Chris is hardball. But obviously tonight we're thinking baseball in Boston, aren't we? So I just want to put everyone's minds at rest tonight, because the real World Series, the World Series of mental health, is right here in this room tonight. And lest you think that we're not fielding the A-team, I'm here to tell you, not only do we have a vice president in the House, we have a secretary of Health and Human Services in the House, we have two NIH directors, and the director of the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and numerous other leaders like all of yourselves here to kick this off. Thank you all very much for being here. I'd especially like to acknowledge my great friend, Senator Gordon Smith, who is here tonight, and I want everyone to say hi to him. So, like me, he's also one of those former members of Congress, but the media listened to him because he's also president of the National Broadcasters Association. So we really appreciate your being here. But the reason Senator Gordon Smith is here tonight is because there are no peers in the Congress on the issue of suicide prevention, an epidemic in this country. There are no peers in this country to the work that Senator Gordon Smith did to memorialize his son, Garrett Lee Smith. And for that, we all owe you, Senator Smith, a debt of gratitude. So, can you believe we're here? I mean, this building was shut down just a week ago, like many government buildings. And many of us didn't think we'd end up being here, but I always knew we'd be here. I knew we would be here because our time is now. Our cause has developed, and our cause is finally come around. It was 50 years ago tomorrow, October 24th, 1963, that my uncle John F. Kennedy first signed into law a series of mental health bills designed to improve the quality of treatment for those in the community of mental health. It was 5 years ago, this October, that President George W. Bush signed into law the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act into law. And earlier this month of October, the Affordable Care Act exchanges opened, guaranteeing that from this day forward, mental health will always be considered essential health. So we have come a long way since President Kennedy first signed that bill 50 years ago. At the time, people with mental illness and intellectual disabilities were relegated to the shadows. We treated them miserably. Highly invasive lobotomies were common. My aunt, Rosemary, never recovered from hers. Americans with intellectual disabilities were institutionalized in run-down, overcrowded facilities. People with mental illness were told they could never recover. But President Kennedy knew differently. He knew from painful experience and personal experience that treating people with mental illness was that way amounted to outright discrimination. He said it was not only unequal, it was unconscionable. So he took the action, as he put it, quote, to return mental health care to the mainstream of American medicine. It was one of the proudest days. It was one of the proudest parts of his new frontier, and not a lot of people know this. One of the accomplishments, in fact, that he planned on talking about on November 22nd, 1963. If he were alive that day to give the speech, here's what he would have said. Quote, "We have launched a bold new attack on mental illness, emphasizing treatment in the patient's own home community instead of some vast custodial institution. We have initiated a full-scale attack on mental retardation, emphasizing prevention instead of abandonment." End quote. President Kennedy never lived to see those words realized, but 50 years later, we have an opportunity ourselves to make them a reality. In the years since his initial signing of the Community Mental Health Act, legislation to treat the mental health and substance abuse problems in our country has rapidly accelerated. Since 2008, we've not only passed the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act, we passed the Affordable Care Act. Our best science has accelerated too, thanks in part to brilliant researchers, many of whom are in this room, giving us deeper insights to neuroscience and the race to inner space. But tonight, as we mark 50 years of unimaginable progress, we have to accelerate what is known as the movement in mental health. This is the civil rights movement of our time. So look around you. We are a community of patients and practitioners, advocates and scientists, ordinary people whose lives have been touched by the tragedies of untreated. Let me repeat that. The tragedies of untreated mental illness. That is where the tragedy is in the untreated part. The tragedy is not in mental illness, it's in not treating that mental illness. So in the civil rights fight, they had a phrase, "Keep your eyes on the prize." And we must keep our eyes not only on the prize, but on our guiding star, which is equality. If we keep our eyes on that star, then together, through this forum and ongoing forums, we can make the case to America that this is their cause too. Together, we're going to ensure not only quality treatment, but equality of treatment. And together, with that star as our true compass, we will arrive at our destination and finish what President Kennedy started 50 years ago. I now have the honor of introducing one woman who is essential to that task, the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kathleen Sebelius. So people who watched her as a Kansas state legislator, as an insurance commissioner, as a two-term governor, and now a cabinet secretary, know that she's smart, she's tough, and she's a fighter. Every day, Secretary Sebelius is fighting for us against the insurance industry and other powerful interests who want to do it the old way instead of the new way, against the entrenched bureaucracy. Secretary Sebelius knows we need better public disclosure requirements. She knows we need an end to non-quantitative treatment limit discrimination. She knows we need to make the scope of mental health coverage the same as all the rest of physical health care coverage. But more than that, Secretary Sebelius understands what Frederick Douglass said. Power concedes nothing without demand, never has, never will. This means it's not enough to pass a law or even implement a final rule. It means constant, vigilant oversight and enforcement of mental health parity, the kind that the banking industry lacked before the financial crisis. So what we need in our country is a mental health equivalent to the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Federal Commission on Civil Rights, which are in charge of overseeing our laws. Because it's one thing to have a law, it's another to make sure it's properly implemented, and that is why our calling card as advocates needs to be transparency, needs to be public disclosure, because, Surgeon General Satcher, we're never going to know whether we're being treated equally until we know the facts of the case. And to do this, we must stand firmly with our Secretary Sebelius so she can stand up for us. We need her to fight for us just as she's always done. And after you hear what she has to tell you tonight, I know you'll join me in cheering her on for the battles that lay ahead for our cause, the cause of mental health. Thank you very much, and let me give you the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kathleen Sebelius.